Hi everybody, this is Kevin over at Gameology. I'm at home today doing a quick video on my initial thoughts on Age of Sigmar. Our camera crew is off, it's July 4th. I want those guys to be able to relax and enjoy themselves. Michael, Joy, Ron have all been working really hard. And also Corey's off with his family enjoying himself as well. We are going to record a full review of Age of Sigmar and some playthrough videos next weekend after the official release. So you'll see the new models. Hopefully I'll be able to get them painted up in time as well so they look really good for you. But I just like many of you, downloaded everything and gave it a quick read through. And I want to give you guys what I really think of this game. And I'm going to be totally honest, this is exactly what Warhammer Fantasy needed. I know a lot of people don't agree with me when I say this, but it really, really needed to be done. The barrier to entry in the game before was just so high that as a player base, we've all decided that we didn't want that complicated of a game. Whereas, like in Warhammer 40K and in the past Fantasy was, you had to spend $100. You got a 300-page rule book that you had to digest. You had to spend another $50 on your army book, and then you had to go buy models, assemble them, and paint them. You're in for quite a bit of money and quite a bit of reading and rules intensive before you can even play your first game. And then you're going to play against another army that has all new sets of rules that you probably haven't seen, and you're going to get your teeth kicked in, and you're going to be mad. Then you're going to go back and buy some more models and adjust your army, and you're going to go play against another person who has another army with some special rules that you weren't prepared for, and you're going to get your teeth kicked in, and this is going to repeat the process. We all went through it, those of us who have been wargaming for a while. But it was a really huge turnoff for a lot of people because then they would go do it in 40K, and then those of you play War Machine and Hordes as well, it became a real big challenge. So one of the things that I think they really did over at Games Workshop was, okay, what can we do to make this fun, give a really strong tribute to our existing customer base, but also make it easy to attract new players? And the one game that's really taken off in the last couple of years that many of you probably know is Star Wars X-Wing. Fantasy Flight created the pre-painted miniatures game. It is fast. It's pretty easy. I can teach somebody how to play it in about 15 minutes. We can play a game. They may not be an expert of it, but they'll understand the concepts, and then everything else is just read the card and play. It does have some advanced strategies. I would not say it's as complicated as Warhammer 40K, but it's attracting people because it's easy to get in. It's not as expensive. They can pick it up and they can play right away. They don't have to spend hours reading a rule book if they don't have somebody to sit down and teach them. So this is really what we needed for fantasy to be able to get people into it, to have more gameplay for the game, and I'm really excited to be able to teach it. Later on, I'm going to be actually teaching my 9-year-old, who's been years watching me paint models, and he's like, Daddy, can I play? Well, I always had to soften the rules for it. Now we're just going to do a 3 War Slate game. I'm going to teach him how to play. He wants to do Dark Elves versus my Skaven. So we're going to slap together, play a couple rounds, maybe escalate it a little bit more based on what we've got, but to get into it. So I think it's going to be a solid performance there. A couple of the things people were concerned about that I've seen on many forums is how do you balance the game? Okay, well, the balance is actually pretty simple. You're going to select a number of war slates, which is really similar to points, and you're going to say this is how many war slates we're going to play, and we're basically how many units or characters are there, things like that. And there were some concerns with that. Well, how do I know it's balanced and what's not? I went through every single 2,000 point list I had for fantasy, and they were all somewhere between 10 and 15 war slates. The one that was 15 was my Skaven, but that was because I was counting all the gun attachments to the core units as separate war slates. So there's really 8 right there that could be considered 4, which would bring it down to 11. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. So if you start at 3, you're somewhere between a 4 and 500 point game, or what it was. The one thing that most people are going to do is balance out how many characters can you take, how many monsters. Obviously, you don't want somebody dropping Malekith in a 3 war slate game. I mean, it's pretty brutal. I read through the rules. So you're going to restrict your special characters, but you would do that in a small game anyway, like it was before. And then what are people saying? Well, there's no model count, there's no this. Okay, so the way the game works is when you deploy, somebody deploys first, puts a unit out, then you switch back and forth, just like Fantasy kind of was before. And then once everybody's deployed, you do a model count. Okay, I have 50 models, you have 30. I now have 1/3 more than you. You get to call sudden death on me. You get a second mission, and those sudden death missions are pretty game changing. If I outnumber you that much, it's really going to force me to have to play differently to be able to beat you, and that's not a fun game to try and compete with. I looked at that, so you are going to be a bit controlling of it, and then a lot of people will consider, okay, well then I'll just have the Chaos Knight hordes that dominated fantasy in the past in 6th and 7th edition before the big blocks were important. That is uniquely possible, but then again, it's much easier to kill them now because I can do a wound, you have a save, anything can wound anything. A dragon may have a lot of wounds. I think some of them have like 14 wounds, but 20 spearmen can take them down because it's just like shooting at Terminators in 40k. You just got to make saves. So I think that's pretty well balanced. I think just about every special character, at least the ones that I can think of, were all in the book. Or the war slates that are all downloadable now. I saw them as there with their new sheets. Many of them have quite a bit of tribute to their former editions. So as you go through there, you'll find it pretty interesting. I think it's going to be a pretty solid game, but again, we'll do a full review, gameplay, and a how to play video on it. I think we're filming it on the 12th, so it should be out of post-production within a couple of days after that with the edit. So we'll have that. We'll probably set up some battle reports as well so you all can see how the game really plays in a bigger scale as well. And we're going to be talking about how to do some escalation. We are going to be launching our Escalation League for Warhammer Fantasy out of Gameology probably in August. Once I have a few games under my belt, I'll put the rules. We'll probably start around 3 or 4 war slates. And then we'll be restricting how many characters, special characters, and monsters as we escalate up to probably about 12 war slates is what I'm thinking. Maybe 15 if we want to get some really big games going. But I'm definitely looking at starting a new army. I haven't picked which one yet. A couple of things I did find interesting because there was another argument of, well, I can do basically an unbound list like there was in 40k. I can take one from this faction, one from this faction. That is true, but you don't want to do that. The reason being is all of your characters have orders that they can do in the command phase. And I read just now a majority of them, and they all pretty much only affect models from their army. Bretonnians and Empire looks like are merged because they have a lot of things that affect the free people, and they'll have the trait on there under their war slate. Skaven are part of Chaos, but all of theirs pretty much only affect Skaven. So yeah, if you want to have Archaon running around with a bunch of other Chaos models and Skaven and Beastmen, their orders may not affect them because it's only going to apply to that. And I think you only get one command in the command phase as of right now, though Archaon's got the ability that all people with command get to do theirs, but then that means you're taking multiple characters and splitting things up. So if you really want to be command-based and really want to count on those, that's not really a good way to go. Now, even with undead, yes, they are both undead with the Tomb Kings and the vampire counts, but some of their orders, again, don't affect each other. A lot of the Tomb Kings orders affect skeletons and not ghouls or some other things, or vampires that the vampire counts will have. So again, you probably want to look at picking one of those factions, and it's very, very similar. Or you can pick a realm and mix and match. I haven't decided which new army I'm going to build. I've committed to doing one for our Fantasy Escalation League. We're looking at being pretty huge, so definitely follow us on YouTube as well as our Facebook page, Gameology, for more details as I post the rules, and we'll discuss them amongst the player base. It'll be a great time. I'm really looking forward to doing demos starting on the 5th at the shop, and I'm also looking forward to all week just seeing who we can get as interested in the game as possible. So if you have an opportunity, if you're in Southern California, definitely stop on in. We'll bang a few things out and have some fun. So, hey, thanks everybody. You all have a great July 4th. I look forward to filming the review. This one went on a little bit longer than I actually thought it would. But yeah, let's just have a great time gaming, and I'll talk to you all soon.